And we're back like we never left. Oregon fans, what's going on? How's everybody living? Hope everyone's having an awesome start to the week because I know the Ducks are. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, publisher and lead editor of Ducks Digest, covering the Oregon Ducks over on Fan Nation, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. We got another awesome show in store for you guys today. Another day, another commitment seems to be the way that it's going for Dan Lanning and the Oregon coaching staff on the recruiting trail as they land another big-time commitment on Monday from 2024 San Jacinto, California wide receiver Dillon Gresham, who chose the Ducks over the likes of Washington and Arizona. I'm back in Long Beach right now because I got to hit the road out to San Jacinto and cover this commitment in person. Really fun time, and a big thank you to Coach Galliano and the rest of the San Jacinto community for having me out to cover this commitment. But love being able to cover these commitments in person. Big moment for these guys. But we're going to be breaking down this commitment for the Ducks, who are now ranked inside the top 5 nationally in the 2024 recruiting class. So we're going to get into, Gresham, his decision, what this means for the Ducks, and a whole lot more. Probably going to go for about 30-ish minutes is kind of my plan for today. Super busy. But if we can, I'll see if I can get some mailbag questions. So go ahead and hop in the live chat for us and hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel to get more Oregon football and recruiting content for sure. So Dillon Gresham is a Duck. Going to throw on some highlights here to kind of just help bring this story to life. But man, 3 commitments in 3 days for Dan Lanning and company as the Ducks stay red hot on the recruiting trail. Another big time addition in the wide receiver room for Junior Adams and the rest of this receiving staff at Oregon. Dillon Gresham is wide receiver number 3 in Oregon's 2024 recruiting class, joining the likes of Jordan Anderson and Tyseer Denmark, the second recruit out of the state of California to announce his commitment to the Ducks here in 2024. And I think for Oregon, this was a little bit of just, Junior Adams and this coaching staff kind of finding, it sounds cliche, but a little bit of a diamond in the rough because this guy, was pretty under recruited. Looking at his 247 Sports recruiting profile, had 14 reported offers at the time of his commitment. He was rated a 4-star prospect, 0.8919 on the 247 Sports composite, the number 409 player in the country, number 58 wide receiver, and the number 32 player in California. So Oregon had to go against, some Pac-12 foes in this one, namely in Washington and Arizona, and they were able to come out on top here in this recruitment. And I got to talk to Dillon after his commitment, and I asked him when he knew that it was Oregon, and he said it was after that second visit out to Eugene in April when he really knew that this was kind of where he wanted to play his college football, that this felt like a spot he could see himself at, and that he was comfortable with the staff. So really with Gresham just as a player, let's kind of get into what the Ducks are getting as a player. I asked his head coach, Coach Eric Galliano, and he was saying that the Ducks are, they're getting a playmaker, a guy who is really able to just do some special things with the ball in his hands. You see him here, the short area burst, the agility, the elusiveness, and he's off to the races. So this is a guy that certainly has big playability written all over him. I mean, if you look at his junior stats, they literally sound like they're straight out of a video game. 6 foot, 175-pound wide receiver. And then we're looking at these stats from his junior year. And as a junior, sorry, I'm stalling a little bit here to get the right stats up because it's giving me some other stuff. Okay, as a junior at San Jacinto, Dillon Gresham, new Oregon wide receiver commit, 90 catches for 2,051 receiving yards and 31 touchdowns. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I want to say it's at least 5 games with 3 touchdowns and then 1 game with 4 touchdowns. I'm going to go ahead and read you his total receiving yards, just, going at a glance. 197, 138, 196, 238, 247, and then his last game of the year, a 2-point loss to Grant High School, 9 catches for 187 yards and 3 touchdowns. So this is a guy who just leaves it all out on the field. And what we absolutely have to talk about, when you're putting up those kind of numbers, you're really making the most out of your touches. So he's an incredibly efficient player in terms of just making the most out of the touches that he gets. Averaged 22.8 receiving yards per catch after his junior year. And what makes him special, obviously you see there the ball skills there, the ability to adjust, plays a little bit of corner on the side as well. But one of the things that really makes Dillon Gresham special is his speed and his quickness. His coach was telling me this is a guy who is pretty much up to his top speed by his 3rd step, which is pretty crazy. But is just another weapon in this wide receiver class that is just loaded with talent. I mean, Oregon's wide receiver room, I think that there was a little bit of discussion about maybe not feeling super great about the depth at the start of spring ball. But then you get Trayshawn Holden, Tez Johnson, Gary Bryant Jr. opts to transfer over from USC. So you're feeling real good about that wide receiver depth. And then now this Oregon staff is saying, okay, we're feeling good about the depth now, but how about the future? We got to go out and get guys like Dillon Gresham. Junior Adams, obviously very well connected in the state of California. That's his home state, and that's where the Ducks have found a very elite crop of skill players in recent years on the recruiting trail. So the addition, deep threat here, you see him just absolutely torching the secondary. He also has additional value as a returner. And this is someone who is super, super athletic. I was asking him, hey, what's your overall athletic picture? Is it just, or are you all in on football? He's football, track, swimming, basketball. So this is just an overall phenomenal athlete. I don't think he necessarily blows you away with his, physical skills. 6 foot, 175 pounds isn't anything super abnormal. Definitely very similar to what the Ducks have in Tyseer Denmark and Jordan Anderson. So some similar builds there. I think that's one of the things that's kind of interesting to me with this wide receiver class is that there's just not a lot of top tier guys that have a lot of size as well. That bigger body frame. The Ducks are going after James Madison. I think that's the main guy that kind of pops out from a physical standpoint out there in Florida. I think he's around 6'3" or so. So this is just another awesome addition for the Ducks here with Dillon Gresham, and then you're continuing to recruit at just such a high clip. I think I was banging the drum for a while that this run was coming for Oregon. It was just a matter of when, not if. The way that this staff has laid out their priorities, they're really making sure that they emphasize recruiting and they get guys that are going to bring them to the next level. You get Michael Van Buren, Zadavian Sims, 2 really big time commitments over the weekend at quarterback and defensive line respectively. And, no one's even close to recruiting on Oregon's level right now on the West Coast, and especially in the Pac-12. I mean, you could say Colorado and USC, they're living in the portal heavy. And they're also getting, I think Colorado is doing a better job right now than USC is recruiting the high school ranks. But I know that USC has been going after some big names as well. And I think that they have a recruiting run of their own in store as well. So kind of zooming out a little bit and looking at the big picture in the Pac-12. But I think that, Oregon is just really putting themselves in a good position to have a really, really strong class here in 2024. Certainly the best class out west as of right now, but there's a lot of time between now and December. I think that the commitment of Dillon Gresham just kind of drives home the point that we're heading into summer, couple weeks, guys are getting out of high school, getting out of school for the summer, and they're saying, I'm excited to just be able to, do my thing and just focus on ball. Oregon's in a perfect spot in terms of what they've done heading into the summer. You have 2 quarterbacks committed, so the most important position for any team to recruit. You have your 2 guys in the fold, and they're both solid in their commitments. So you're able to go out and recruit a guy like Dillon Gresham and some other big-time pass catchers in the 2024 class that we're going to talk about here. So you're able to go into the summer really confident with the group that you already have. And then that group is going to, start recruiting some more too, right? You have a bunch of commits saying, who's next? We want you to join, this, that, and the other. But there's just so many guys that are already in the fold that Oregon's able to kind of focus their priority on some of those big time targets that they maybe have a little bit of ground to make up with. But there's so many guys that are going to be taking their official visits, making their commitments as we get into the summer months here, because they ultimately want to be able to kind of wrap up the recruiting process before their senior years. They want to be able to go out with a bang and not have to worry about, hey, I just won this game Friday night. Now I got to go catch a plane to go check out a school. I got to go fly across the country. I got coaches hitting me up left and right. As cool as the recruiting process is on the surface, it as someone who's covered it for a while, that is one of the elements that I'm trying to ask about a little more is just, do you like all the attention? Do you not like all the attention? Is it a lot of stress on your shoulders with all of this? So I don't think that should go unrealized or unnoticed here with the recruiting process. But Oregon's at a great spot because now they're going to get a lot of their top guys back onto campus. You had a bunch of big time guys on campus over the weekend from Santa Ana Mater Dei. You had Brandon Baker, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. He was on campus. You had Aiden Breland, the number 1 defensive lineman on the West Coast, who just put Oregon in his top 10, I want to say a week or so ago. Getting him back on campus is huge. I really don't think that Oregon's in the driver's seat there. But they're doing what they can. They're staying involved in that recruitment and they're getting them onto campus. Then you also had Trent Ferguson, an offensive lineman that's committed to Oregon. He was on campus. Fox Crater, another offensive lineman that's committed to the Ducks. He's been taking a lot of trips. USC was the biggest one of late, but they're able to get him back on campus. I think that was definitely a big visit for the Ducks to get him back on campus to keep things rolling. So you're able to keep pushing ahead for some of your top guys. And then you also, we've said it a million times, just because somebody's committed to you, that doesn't mean that you stop recruiting them. So I think that might've been, a little bit of an under the radar storyline from this weekend is that Fox Crater was back on campus. And then you got Brandon Baker tweeting there's something special about that. As we all know, that kind of rhymed. As we all know, his brother Gary played defensive line for the Ducks in 2019. That was his senior year. So he's got close family ties, and his teammate Lipe Moala is a 2023 offensive lineman that committed to Oregon, and he should be on campus next month in June with the remainder of the 2023 class. So you're getting a bunch of guys in the fold on the recruiting trail that are committing. So those are guys that are, basically expressing votes of confidence. I love what this coaching staff's doing. I love what Dan Lanning's doing. I want to hop on board and be a part of it. You have all of that happening while you're still bringing in commits that can help you recruit, and then other top recruits that you're still trying to, seal the deal with. And I think another note that's worth mentioning is that it looks like June 23rd is Oregon's big official visit weekend, at least in the month of June. I think now the focus turns towards Saturday Night Live, which has kind of typically been the top recruiting event for Oregon, aside from the spring game, right? I think, because we were wondering kind of when that run was going to happen after the spring game. The spring game came and went. It was a little bit quiet. And then now the Ducks are heating up. The Ducks are one of the hottest teams in the country on the recruiting trail right now. And it's important to note too, that this is a national brand. Oregon has the number 5 class in the 2024 recruiting rankings. It looks like it hasn't updated just yet. It has them at number 6, but I'm pretty confident in saying that they are number 5 nationally right now, unless someone else got a commit. Maybe LSU got a new commit. That's why that it has Oregon at number 6. But top 5, top 6, give or take. But look at the body of work that the staff has in terms of just having a national reach, having a national presence. You have Ife Obadegwu and Michael Van Buren out of Baltimore, Maryland. You have Aaron Flowers out of the state of Texas, Davian Sims out of the state of Oklahoma, Fox Crater in Washington, Luke Moga, Jackson Jones in Arizona, AJ Pugliano out of Medford, Oregon. Who else you got here? Jackson Ford's another guy out of Texas. And then you also have Tioni Gray out of the state of Missouri, which is another state that has really been a priority for Dan Lanning and the Ducks since he took over, which makes a lot of sense because he's from Missouri. So obviously he's going to show his home state some love if they think that it's worth it. And you have, a lot of big time talent coming out of there. You got Williams Nwaneri, the number 1 defensive lineman in 2024. You got Jeremiah McClellan, big time wide receiver out of the St. Louis area. Ryan Wingo is another big time wide receiver that the Ducks are still involved in a little bit on that recruitment. I'm going to have a little bit more on what's next for Oregon at wide receiver over on Ducks Digest, maybe a little bit later today and tomorrow. So keep an eye out on that. But those are just some of the guys that are big-time talents out of the state of Missouri. I know Utah is another state that Lanning and company have taken an interest in of late. They're recruiting Isaiah Garcia, big-time offensive lineman out of the state of Utah at Corner Canyon. So those are a couple states that you got to keep an eye on. But I think that it's just another example that Oregon's going to go wherever they need to get the top players, to get those players that are going to take them to the next level and help them build a national championship. I mean, I've been covering the Ducks for 4 or 5 years now, and it started with Mario Cristobal. So, and I'm still hearing the same things, national championship type program, national championship type team. These are the guys that we need to get the program to the next level. That's still the goal. And I think that, I said I had a show not too long ago about how Oregon's 2024 class is going to be the best recruiting class in program history. And I think that this past weekend and then into today only proves that much more. I think that Dan Lanning saw what Mario Cristobal was doing on their recruiting trail, and he really just picked up right where Mario left off, because he was doing it at a super high level at Georgia. He had that blueprint to see the SEC side of things, and then the way that Mario was running it in Eugene was already kind of like a SEC type of talent, type of approach. And you're seeing Oregon up there right with the best of them, right? So now in the top 6, you have Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2. They seem to be going back and forth. Ohio State at 3, Notre Dame at 4, LSU at 5, and then Oregon at number 6. And then the next closest Pac-12 team after Oregon, I have to scroll a little bit, Colorado at 34. Colorado has 5 commits here in the 2024 recruiting class. And then you have UCLA at number 47. So when you're looking at your next Pac-12 school, Arizona at 51, USC at 54, and then Stanford at 55. So Oregon is obviously far, far ahead of a lot of these other teams in the Pac-12. But like I said, I think USC's definitely got something special brewing, and I think they're going to make a run as we get into the summer months here with some big-time official visitors coming to campus. But Oregon has 14 commits in the fold now, and 11 of those 14 commits are rated 4 stars on the 247 sports rankings. 3 of them are 3 stars, and they're averaging 91.01 rating per commit here in the 2024 class. So let's get to a couple mailbags and then I'll talk a little bit about what's next for Oregon. Eric, what's going on, Eric? Eric said, "What's up, Max? Another huge day for the Ducks. Gresham is a beast, leading the nation in receiving. There's no way he finishes his senior year ranked as wide receiver number 44. He'll finish inside the top 20. Yeah, so right now, Dillon Gresham is ranked number 44, the number 44 wide receiver in the country, according to the 247 sports rankings. The 247 sports composite has him as the number 58 receiver. So I think they're supposed to update their rankings pretty soon. And I think that it wouldn't be a shock to see a guy like Gresham get a bump because of his, elite production from his junior year. But all that being said, if you get that bump, you're going to have to keep it consistent and keep producing as a senior. But there's so many other talented wide receivers in Southern California that I feel like Gresham kind of flew under the radar because of that. You have Ryan Pelham at Long Beach Millikan. You have Xavier Jordan at Sierra Canyon. Those are some of the big ones in the 24 class, at least. I'm trying to think of some more off the top of my head. Mater Dei has some good guys there too. I know Jack Ressler is a 2024 wide receiver that the Ducks are recruiting pretty heavily. So I think, and I went out to San Jacinto this morning, and it's a really small town, a very, very small town. You don't really see, I don't want to pass judgment and say not a lot going on, but it doesn't look like it's, a poppin' city. So I think that it's kind of a little bit more of a low profile kind of town. And I think that might've been part of the reason that you see a guy like Dillon Gresham kind of flying under the radar a little bit. But if he keeps doing his thing, keeps balling, I think that there's definitely a reason that we should believe that he could get a rankings bump. And then Eric also said, Lanning and staff are amazing at identifying talent before all the rankings are updated. No, that's spot on for sure. I mean, you already saw that obviously with Dillon Gresham. You can make a similar case for Luke Moga, who is hardly scratching his surface of his potential at all. That's what his coach told me when I went to see him out in Arizona last week. So those are two guys that could definitely, see their stock rise. Jackson Ford is a 3-star tight end out of Melissa, Texas. I think you could see his stock rise. Trent Ferguson, 2024 offensive lineman out of West Salem High School that's committed to Oregon. 6'7", 300 pounds, super athletic guy, pretty new to the state of football, but, played lacrosse, played basketball. You're going to take those guys if they're in your backyard and they want to come to Oregon, even if they're not necessarily rated that high. I don't think that any good coaching staff is going to be taking commitments just because a guy is rated highly. Obviously, that's not the case. And then a more recent example, one of my favorite examples of guys that have been kind of late risers or weren't really ranked that high, and now they've really changed. Nate Frazier, 2024 running back out of Santa Ana Mater Dei. Oregon came in with an offer last fall, like relatively early in the fall. And I remember I covered a couple Mater Dei games in person last year, and I was like, this guy is just a beast. Like, how is he? I thought he was kind of underrated. And then now, sure enough, I think On3 has him as their number one running back, and every school in the country is calling after that guy. You got Alabama, you got Georgia, you got Nebraska. Everybody is going after Nate Frazier, but Oregon was in on him early. Carlos Laughlin has done a phenomenal job in that recruitment, and I still feel like Oregon's in a really good spot there in that recruitment. So getting in early on guys and, being that first school in some cases that shows that faith, I think that really carries a little bit of weight still here in today's era of college football. Brad's Adams says this is a good target for Van Buren to throw to. Absolutely. I think that's another reason why this commitment is such a big one for Oregon, is that you're still giving quarterbacks, Luke Moga and Michael Van Buren, guys that they can throw to. You're keeping them stocked with weapons, with more playmakers that they're able to use on offense and get the ball to. I do feel like, I want to do a little bit more research on each of these receiver commits and their skill sets, because they do on the surface seem to be a little bit similar. And I wonder how that kind of factors into things. I remember asking Brian McClendon before the 2021 season at Oregon, you got Troy, you got Dante, you have Isaiah Brevard and Chris Hudson and these other guys. You want to have a mixture of body types and skill sets in your receiver room. And, Gresham's a dynamic guy that I think that they really want to move all around, play a little bit of Z on offense as well, that Z receiver spot. I think they can do a little bit of everything. So there's more versatility that really, really comes into play here. And, Van Buren and Moga have to be super happy that they have another talented receiver to throw to here in the 2024 class. Micah time with a question. What's going on? Thanks for the question. How many running backs are we looking for? Need a running mate for Moga? That's a good question. I think right now I would probably say Oregon is looking for 2 running backs. And that makes sense, right? Because if Bucky Irving and Noah Whittington have similar seasons to the ones that they had last year, I think that it's not far-fetched that they could be off to the NFL. Certainly Bucky kind of was the number one go-to back, bell cow back, but their usage stats really weren't that different when all was said and done. So I think I'm not saying that I think they're both going to go to the league after the 2023 season, but if they would not surprise me in the least, which is why I think this Oregon staff wants to get 2 more running backs here in the 2024 class. Nate Frazier, I think, is very much at the very top of that board for Carlos Loughlin here in the 2024 recruiting class out of Southern California. And then another name, Jason Brown Jr. out of Seattle O'Dea. He was on campus this past weekend. He's another high profile running back that the Ducks are pursuing heavily here in the 2024 class. A couple other big names that are definitely worth watching for Oregon. You know, they were going after Christian Clark out of Mountain Point in Phoenix, Arizona, but I think they have kind of cooled off a little bit on his recruitment. You know, Cameron Jones out of St. John Bosco, another guy that they've offered, but I don't think that he's that much of a priority right now. One of the other names to watch, though, is definitely Dejon Riggs out of St. John's College in Washington, D.C., where the Ducks found Colin Gill last year in the 2023 recruiting rankings, the 2023 recruiting cycle. Those are kind of some of the 3 big names that I think you need to watch at Oregon for Oregon at the running back position in particular. So I would say probably 2 running backs because you just want to make sure you have options if one or even both of those guys end up going to the league in Bucky Irving and Noah Whittington. So what's next for Oregon at wide receiver? I think we got to talk about that a little bit. There's 3 wide receivers committed already. I think that one recent guy that I'm hearing some more buzz on with regard to Oregon and, you know, there being some legitimate interest there is Jack Ressler out of Mater Dei in Santa Ana, California. You know, one of the best programs in the entire country. He has Oregon in his top 5 right now. He's rated a 3-star guy. But I think that there's definitely some upside there, and I need to look some more at his game. But he's working from a top 3, like I mentioned. So let me go ahead and pull that up so that we can kind of get a look at what is going on here. He was on campus for the Oregon spring game. So I think that if you have some recent trips, that's obviously going to go a long way in terms of just staying on top of a guy's mind and seeing what's going on there with his recruitment. You got to, if you're getting a guy on campus for a couple different visits, I think that's really going to help you. So right now, looking at this, you got Jack Ressler. He has a top 5 of Boise State, Oregon State, Penn State, Oregon, and Arizona State. He's rated a 4-star on, it looks like some recruiting services have him as a 4-star. 247 has him as a 3-star. On their rankings and on the composite, which takes into account some of the other recruiting services, obviously. So Jack Ressler is absolutely a name to watch for Oregon here. In the coming weeks, it sounds like he might be getting close to making his college decision. So he's definitely a big name to watch for at receiver, in the 2024 class. Other big names to watch for Oregon on the recruiting trail at wide receiver. I already talked about one of them earlier today, but Jeremiah McClellan is a huge target for Junior Adams and the Ducks out of Christian Brothers College in St. Louis, Missouri. He's a guy that has taken a couple of visits out to Oregon. He has Oregon in his top 7, I want to say. I could be a little bit wrong. I'm double checking right now. But Jeremiah McClellan is a recent visitor. He visited for the spring game. He is working from a top 12 right now. You got schools like Ohio State, Georgia, Missouri, Michigan, Notre Dame, Tennessee, the who's who, including Oregon, in that top 12. So we'll see if he ends up, whittling things down a little bit as we head into the summer months here. But Jeremiah McClellan, I think, is the guy that they're going to go all in on at wide receiver for sure. He's a massive name to watch here in the 2024 class. And then you also have Gatlin Bear out of Burley Senior High School in Burley, Idaho. He's got crazy speed. I think he ran a 10.15 over the weekend or last week. So, the Ducks have been prioritizing speed for a while. And I think that is absolutely a guy that checks off that box. You got Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. He's another guy that Oregon's kind of staying involved with, but I think he's kind of a long shot right now, if you're asking my opinion. Ryan Pelham out of Long Beach Millikan. I think that Oregon's going to be in the mix in that recruitment kind of until the very end. I think he's working from a top 10 right now. Looks like the Ducks are going to get an official visit. I think he has an an official visit to Oregon and USC set right now. So that's a guy that you got to keep an eye on for sure. I'm just looking through the other guys that they've offered here and trying to think of who comes to mind. James Madison out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. He has Oregon in his top 5. He and Dan Lanning are both Kansas City natives. So we'll see if that kind of helps give the Ducks a little bit of a pull in his recruitment. Malachi Durant out of Graham, Washington. He's another guy that's been linked to the Ducks for a while. UCLA, Oregon State also in the mix there. But I think those are some of the big names to watch for. And then another one that you got to know is Terry Bussey. He's a guy, big-time recruit out of the state of Texas, out of Timpson High School in Timpson, Texas. 247 has him as the number 15 player in the country and the number 1 athlete in the country, number 2 guy in the state of Texas. You know, some of the people that I've talked to in Eugene tell me that they kind of see him as a running back, wide receiver, a guy who can do a little bit of everything for you. He's listed at 5'10 and a half, 180 pounds, has Oregon in his top 10 schools right now. And it looks like there's a very good chance that Terry Bussey, the number 1 athlete in the 2024 class, could end up making his way out to Eugene for a visit next month. So that's kind of what's going on at wide receiver. You know, I don't want to share everything right now. I definitely want to make sure that you guys are tuned into ducksdigest.com because that's where I have all my latest and greatest stuff. I'm going to be rolling out some more stuff on kind of what this commitment means for Oregon and what's next on the recruiting trail as we head into a very important stretch here in the month of May and then looking towards June. But if you guys are here in the live chat, do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Oregon Football Max Torres, and then share the Ducks Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. Important to lock in with me on Twitter at mtorresports, also at mtorresports on Instagram, trying to grow that presence. But yeah, this is a really, really important time for Oregon football recruiting. And, you know, if you're thinking about Oregon recruiting, I'm your guy. Don't forget that. So I think that's what we'll do for today's show. We'll call it a day there. I know we had some people trickle in a little bit late, but appreciate you guys for tuning in. And, you know, if you're watching on a replay, leave me a comment and let me know how you're feeling about Oregon football on the recruiting trail in the 2024 class. But, yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk some Ducks with me, talk some recruiting, talk some Oregon football. You know I can never get enough of it, but thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your day. And until next time, thanks for listening to another episode of the Ducks Dish Podcast.